Hello and welcome to the Consider This channel. This is Chapter 10 of Evidence of Soul by Sharon Patrice. UFOs. The 4th of June, 2021. It was early morning, and what seemed like the entire world, or at least the world of UFO hunters, ancient alien theorists, pseudoscientists, pseudo-archaeologists, and all those with an interest in such things, perhaps even foreign governments, awaited, with an intake of breath, and an overpowering hunger for knowledge. They did not have long to wait. The document, to be released that day by the US intelligence community, would outline, with the uttermost authority, their enlightened findings on an in-depth investigation into a reported 120 incidents of possible UFO sightings, and it was to be a world first. Well, I say, a world first, and it is. If you don't count the Russians, the Chinese, and the Second World War Nazis looking into UFOs. However, as the latter did not share their findings with the rest of humanity, there really is no reason to include them from here on. The document arrived. News channels clambered over each other to air the story first. The report concluded that US technology was not involved in most cases, but beyond that, the document made no explicit assessment of what the UFOs might be, an official stated. It was as though a wave-like motion of gravity swept under us all, and took our jaws captive, firmly dragging them ever closer to the ground. Where were the answers we craved? Where was the confirmation of little gray men crashing to the ground at Roswell, New Mexico in 1947? Questions kept coming, as an agonizing disappointment set in, until those with an interest in all things ET dismissed the report as a whitewash, hogwash, a cover-up or worse. The British explanation. On the other hand, Project Condign was a hush-hush UFO study, undertaken by the British government's Defence Intelligence Staff, DIS, between 1997 and 2000. The results of this top-secret project were compiled into a document titled Unidentified Aerial Phenomena in the UK Air Defence Region. The project looked into approximately 10,000 reported sightings. These were collected by a section of the Directorate of Scientific and Technical Intelligence, a component part within the DIS. The report was eventually, perhaps reluctantly, released to the public in May 2006, but only after a lecturer at Sheffield Hallam University, UFO researchers Dr. David Clarke and Gary Anthony, a former BUFORA, British UFO Research Association, astronomical consultant, put in a Freedom of Information request, and we thank them dearly for that, for without their request, we would be none the wiser. Project Condign's 400-page document concluded that UFOs had a noticeable presence that was indisputable. But no evidence had been found to suggest they are hostile or under any type of control. According to its authors, who remain unnamed to date, the majority of analyzed sightings can be explained by the misidentification of common objects such as aircraft and balloons. So, no surprise there. In fact, pretty much the same as the USA's report issued in 2021. However, the conclusion continued with an unexpected statement suggesting the remaining unexplainable reports were most likely the result of a supernormal meteorological phenomena not fully understood by modern science. They named this phenomenon buoyant plasma formation, and it is reckoned to produce an energy field which, they believe, in some cases, creates the appearance of a black triangular shape by the simple occurrence of light refracting. Sounds like another fob-off, but read on. Refraction of light can be seen in many places in our everyday lives. For example, it makes objects under surface water appear closer than they actually are, a little like a magnifying glass. It's also the naturally occurring optical phenomenon we may call a mirage, in which light rays bend via refraction to produce a displaced image of distant objects. It is what optical lenses are based on. An optical illusion. But, just what is plasma made of, buoyantly available or not? We have already gone over the 4 elemental states of matter in a previous chapter, but it is worth reminding ourselves. Plasma is one of the 4 fundamental states of matter known to us as solid, liquid, gas, and itself, plasma. An uncomplicated way to describe and remember the confinements is solid. Imagine the sheets of ice rock still on the North Pole of our planet. This ice is the solid matter of water. It is water in its solid form. Liquid, imagine water flowing or even stagnant, that is the liquid form of matter, known as water, and brings water from its solid matter owing to environmental changes, which bring a heated atmosphere, thereby melting the water. Gas, as we know, is brought about when that slightly heated atmosphere becomes extremely hot, turning the liquid form of water into steam, which is seen as a gas. Plasma is invisible to the naked eye and is a gas characterized only as plasma by the presence of charged, that is electrified, particles in any of many combinations of ions or electrons. The very presence of charged particles determines plasma as a state of matter. It is the most abundant form of matter in our universe, as we have already discussed. Man-made plasma can be artificially generated by heating a neutral gas and subjecting it to a strong electromagnetic field, but before we go any deeper, let us look at electromagnetic fields and their relationship to plasma. According to modern thinking, before the Big Bang Theory, and prior to recombination of universal matter, the entire space, now known to us as the universe, was in a plasma state. Professor Christian Olaf Bernhard Birkeland, 1867–1917, was a Norwegian scientist at the Royal Frederiks University of Oslo. He is best remembered for his theory on atmospheric electric currents, AEC. These AECs, he believed, explained the nature of the aurora borealis, a natural electrical phenomenon characterized by the appearance of a brilliant display of colors lighting up the sky near the northern or southern magnetic poles. The effect, we now understand, is caused by the interaction of charged particles from the Sun with atoms in the upper atmosphere. This phenomenon is also known to many today as the Northern Lights. In order to fund his research, he invented the electromagnetic cannon, also known as the railgun, which is a linear motor instrument, typically designed as a weapon. It uses electromagnetic force to launch high-velocity projectiles. The projectiles do not contain explosives, instead it relies on the projectile's intense energy to inflict damage. Birkeland was in fact nominated for the Nobel Prize a whopping 7 times. What is more, Birkeland hypothesized space is filled with plasma. He stated, "It seems to be a natural consequence of our points of view to assume that the whole of space is filled with electrons and flying electric ions of all kinds. We have assumed that each stellar system, through its evolution, throws off electric corpuscles into space." Birkeland went on to anticipate that most of the mass in the universe should be found in empty space, that mass being occupied by plasma. Now, here's the thing. Physicists have created plasma blobs, for want of a more descriptive statement, of gaseous plasma that can replicate, grow, and communicate, fulfilling most of the traditional requirements for biological cells. In other words, it fulfills most of the requirements for life. They say, most of the traditional requirements for biological cells, because without an inherited material, read that as DNA, that's the blobs of plasma, cannot be described as alive, because, as we are aware, all life carries DNA. However, researchers believe these curious spheres may offer a radical new explanation, at the very least, for how life began. Reportedly, most biologists theorize, the first living cells arose out of a complex and lengthy evolution of a sort of chemical soup, which took millions of years to establish, and brought about the beginning of life, via simple molecules through amino acids, primitive proteins, and finally forming an organized structure, which we will look at in the next chapter. Mircea Sanjulovica, 1928–2018, was a Romanian plasma physicist, and he was about to launch a plasma bomb into the world of what the top echelons of academia believed. Sanjulovica, and his team, at the Alexandru Lone-Țușar University in Romania, reported cell-like self-organization can occur within a few microseconds directly from highly charged plasma. Let that sink in for a second. Cell-like self-organization can occur within a few microseconds directly from highly charged plasma. As reported in, and all credits and thanks to newscientist.com for bringing this piece to the forefront of our attention. They inserted 2 electrodes into a chamber containing a low-temperature plasma of argon, a gas in which some of the atoms have been split into electrons and charged ions. They applied a high voltage to the electrodes, producing an arc of energy that flew across the gap between them, like a miniature lightning strike. They go on to state, Sanjulovica says this electric spark caused a high concentration of ions and electrons to accumulate at the positively charged electrode, which spontaneously formed spheres. Each sphere had a boundary made up of two layers, an outer layer of negatively charged electrons and an inner layer of positively charged ions. They go on to explain trapped inside the boundary was an inner nucleus of gas atoms. The amount of energy in the initial spark governed their size and lifespan. Sanjulo-Visscher grew spheres from a few micrometers up to 3 centimeters in diameter. NewScientist.com go on to inform us. Sanjulo-Visscher decided to find out if his newly formed plasma cells met any other criteria that may suggest life: the ability to replicate, to communicate information, and to metabolize and grow. Amazingly, Sanjulo-Visscher found these spheres could, and did replicate by splitting into two, and with the right conditions, they would also get bigger. Apparently, these plasma spheres took up neutral argon atoms and split them into ions and electrons to replenish their boundary. It was explained. They found the charged plasma could communicate information by emitting electromagnetic energy, making the atoms, within other spheres, vibrate at a particular frequency. The spheres are not the only self-organizing systems to meet all of these requirements, but they are the first gaseous cells. Sanjulo-Visscher even thinks they could have been the first cells on Earth, arising within electric storms. The emergence of such spheres seems likely to be a prerequisite for biochemical evolution, he states. Living sentient plasma. There appear to be many descriptions for numerous types of plasma coming from those intellectuals in the know, one of which is described as living sentient plasma, sentient simply meaning animated, and the go-to professor for an explanation on this phenomenon is the widely popular astrophysicist, best-selling author, and electronic musician extraordinaire Dr. Massimo Teodorani. He questions if elementary particles constituting plasma, when working in unison together, give rise to the emergence of consciousness. This is mind-blowing madness. Are we to believe that a plasma may produce or even have a consciousness? Dusty plasma. Dusty plasma is more than interesting in our quest, because the presence of particles within, think dust in its widest form of recognition, significantly alters the charged particle reaction within plasma. It appears to lead to quite a different phenomenon than we expect and understand from other plasmas. Electrostatic coupling between the grains of dust can vary over a wide range so that the states of the dusty plasma can change, from weakly coupled to crystalline, and it is for this very reason that such plasma are of interest as a means to study generic fundamental physics of self-organization, pattern formation, phase transitions, and scaling. It all sounds rather mind-boggling, but it's quite easy if you just remember dusty plasma and living sentient plasma are worth putting to one side and noting, because it gives us a scientific suggestion of a possible natural, universal electronic life form, with the possibility to reproduce, and without sounding too excited, could quite easily be the proof we are looking for. But where do these plasma theories actually lead us to, on the road of soul discovery? Well, let us look at the beginning of life on planet Earth, of which we are all descended, and see if we might equate the up-to-date numerous hypotheses of plasma to the archaeological and scientific realities known to us today. Single-cell organisms. A single-celled organism, also known as a unicellular organism, just to confuse us, is a living form, organism, that consists of one cell. It is believed, theorized, hypothesized, and generally covered with an educated guess, that we are all descended from a particular single-celled organism that brought life to this otherwise stone-cold or sometimes fire-hot planet, around 4.5 billion years ago or more. In my book, A God by Any Other Name, Tracing the Concept of God, I briefly ponder on the question, where is the soul located in the flesh body? A strange yet relevant question. If we now interpret plasma, in particular dusty or living sentient plasma, or perhaps a combination of both, as being a possible natural life force, and of course readily available throughout the universe, then we must also consider the presence of real-time ETs. This of course does not suggest there are life forces on other planets that have developed to look like us humans. The human development took millions of years of evolution and very particular environmental factors. Other planets may not have the same environmental elements or direction of evolutionary detail. If an intergalactic astronaut came to visit Earth, what would that life force look like? Would it look at planet Earth and assume humans were the more intelligent life force here? Would it have 2 legs, 2 arms, and a head? Would it have a way of communicating that us humans might understand? In a fascinating video by Lex Friedman, a Russian-American computer scientist, podcaster, writer, and artificial intelligence researcher at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, podcast number 45, Friedman interviews the ever-charming and wildly brilliant Professor Michio Kaku on the future of humans, aliens, space travel, and physics. Michio Kaku is an American theoretical physicist, activist, futurologist, and popular science writer. He is a professor of theoretical physics in the City College of New York and CUNY Graduate Center. Kaku is the author of several books about physics and related topics, in particular string theory, and has made frequent appearances on radio, television, and film. Both Friedman and Kaku are immensely admired by many, including myself. Friedman starts off the interview by asking, "You've mentioned that we might just make contact with aliens or at least hear from them this century. Can you elaborate on your intuition behind that optimism?" Kaku relies, "Well, this is pure speculation, of course, but given the fact we have already identified 4,000 planets orbiting other stars, and we have a census of the Milky Way galaxy, for the first time. We know that on average," he repeats, "on average, and continues, every solitary star has a planet going around it, and about 1/5 of them have Earth-sized planets going around them, so do the math. We are talking about 100 billion stars in the Milky Way galaxy, and so we're talking about billions of Earth-sized stars, and to believe that we are the only one, I think is ridiculous, given the odds and how many galaxies there are. Within sight of the Hubble Space Telescope there are about 100 billion galaxies. How many stars are there in the visible universe? 100 billion galaxies times 100 billion stars per galaxy, we are talking about a number beyond human imagination, and to believe we are the only ones, I think, is rather ridiculous." Kaku later goes on to say the universe could have been messy, random, but it's gorgeous. He then relates a story of how Einstein, as a young boy, went into a huge library for the first time. He was overwhelmed by the beauty, elegance, and simplicity of this library, but all he could do was read the first page of each volume. He continues, "Well, that library is the universe, a source of mysterious magical things we have yet to find." Friedman apologizes for staying on the alien theory but asks Kaku, "When you think of aliens out there, entities, do you think they would look something that is recognizable to us as a life, or would they be radically different?" Kaku replies, "Well, how did we become intelligent? Basically, 3 things made us intelligent. One thing is our eyesight, stereo eyesight, to look in as hunters." He goes on to explain the second condition is a thumb, tentacle or thumb, but important for hand-eye coordination, which is the way we manipulate the environment, and 3 is language. He goes on to tell us these 3 necessities are the 3 basic things for intelligence. Kaku continues, "So when we meet travelers from out of space, they will be predators or descended from predators of some sort, some way to manipulate the environment and a way to communicate of some sort. When a great scientific mind, such as Michio Kaku, is talking about the real possibilities of aliens in such depth, we should take it seriously. We understand planet Earth was made from non-living matter, as one must assume all other planets are. The planets in our solar system, for example, are made up of diverse types of materials, nevertheless dead materials. As an example, Mercury, Venus, Earth, and Mars are composed mainly of metals and rocks. They have a definite surface, and are mostly made of silicate minerals along with iron and nickel metals. Earth has water, and as we chat between ourselves, other humans are desperately trying to work out if there was ever water on our nearest planetary neighbors. If so, does the presence of water on Mars or the Moon suggest there was life on Mars or the Moon? On Earth, life without water is impossible for most living beings, as water is essential for numerous vital bodily functions. Us humans can only survive without water for about 3 to 4 days, depending on a range of factors. However, this is not the case for all life forms on our planet. Indeed, some microbes can live without water by using carbon monoxide instead. This being the case, could there be intelligent reproducing life forms on planets that have no water? Then there is the case for oxygen. All life forms need oxygen, right? Well, actually no. Scientists at the Tel Aviv University in Israel have found a life form that can survive without oxygen. The team led by Diana Yahalomi took a closer look at the DNA of a jellyfish-like parasite in the salmon called Hennegia salmonicola. It has less than 10 cells, lives within the muscle tissue of the salmon, and doesn't have mitochondria, which are specialized structures unique to the cells of animals, plants, and fungi. They serve as batteries, powering various functions of the cell and the organism as a whole. It is thought the Henigaia salmonicola evolved without the use mitochondria and without the need for oxygen. In fact, it could not breathe oxygen even if it wanted to, because it gave up the process as it evolved. The researchers explained, "Our discovery confirms that adaptation to an anaerobic environment is not unique to single-celled eukaryotes, but has also evolved in a multicellular, parasitic animal. These parasites are a devolved descendant of the jellyfish but have lost most similarities to it except a structure resembling the stings in the jellyfish. This structure is not used to sting but to hook onto the host." This being the case, we really do need to look again at what we consider a life form to be, and when searching for signs of life on near or distant planets, keep in mind no water nor oxygen does not equal no life. This is the end of Chapter 10. Thank you for watching, but before you hop on over to Chapter 11, do the kid a favor and please hit that subscribe button, like and share. I'll see you in the next chapter.